Where are we going today?
London.
We are going to watch Blackberry Smoke tonight.
At the Roundhouse.
And at the Roundhouse. Right, Adamson, we have seen about 3 or 4 people fall downstairs today. We're on an escalator, so do not fall downstairs. Yes, I am. Thank you. So, who are Blackberry Smoke? Well, they were formed in Atlanta, USA in 2000, comprising of frontman Charlie Starr on vocals and lead guitar, Richard Turner on bass, Britt Turner on drums, Paul Jackson also on guitar, and Brandon Still featuring on keyboards. Currently signed to independent record label Earache Records in the UK, their latest album release, You Hear Georgia, is their 7th studio album and their first release since 2018. I'd like to say that I'm a huge fan of the band, but I'm essentially a casual listener of Blackberry Smoke, having been introduced to the band several years ago by friends of mine. My first impressions of that time was harking back to similarities to the Black Crowes in the 1990s, Lynyrd Skynyrd and the Eagles. I really like the southern rock vibe presented with slide guitar, single coil pickup tones that are not too heavily overdriven, which complement the feel-good factor of the band. For this year, the Smokes were doing a 6-date tour of the UK and Ireland, in support of their new album, which kicked off at Birmingham's O2 Academy on Sunday 26th of March. Our tickets for their show were in Camden Town's Roundhouse on Saturday the 1st of April for their London leg of their UK visit. We got a train from Blackpool that morning to Euston Station, which followed with a 2-stop tube journey, and we were just a very short walk to the venue itself. A queue was forming outside, which we tagged onto whilst we waited for the doors to open. So the Roundhouse is a Grade 2 listed building, which was formerly used as a railway shed. Built in 1846 by the London and North West Railway as a circular building containing a railway turntable, it was used for about 10 years before being used as a warehouse. Now very much a modern day theatre, but still keeping its period charm of cast iron pillars, it suits the rustic nature of the band we were about to see. Right, we are at the Roundhouse in Camden, and we are here to see Blackberry Smoke. We've just got here, a bit of a funny queuing process, but nonetheless we are now in. Yeah, we couldn't find the cloakroom, so we're still wearing our coats, and when we asked where the cloakroom was, they said it's back downstairs, back where the main entrance is, but there's no signs to say that, so we're pretty much stuck with what we've got. So anyway, we'll see what happens. See you soon. Support band was the Reed Southall band from Oklahoma, who performed a great opening act to get the crowd nicely warmed up. With 3 albums under their belts, and the latest being For the Birds, these guys are well worth keeping an eye open for in the future.
Thank you for coming to see us tonight. You all look just as beautiful as you did 3 years ago, maybe even more so. You have more of a natural glow to your beautiful faces.
Blackberry Smoke kicked off their 21-song set with 6 Ways to Sunday from their 2012 album, The Whippoorwill. This really opened up for what was about to come, which was quickly followed by a good one coming up from 2008.
It's Saturday night, I don't know about y'all, but I feel good. Are you feeling good? It's on the piano and the organ back there. The ruggedly handsome Brother Brandon Still, ladies and gentlemen. Also, bringing his Florida charm to the London's Roundhouse, his brother Paul Jackson on the guitar and vocals. We like to call him the Panhandle Kid, the Pensacola Panhandle Kid. From the backwoods of Georgia, where they worship the devil and drive big Chevy pickup trucks. From Rome, Georgia. He doesn't really worship the devil, but he plays the guitar and the mandolin really well. It's his brother Benji Shanks, ladies and gentlemen. And please give it up one time for the great brother Britt Turner on the drums, ladies and gentlemen.
Highlights for me was the track Whippoorwill, whose first few bars has distinct moody flavours to that of Pink Floyd's Breathe. On a personal level, the encore powered in with Shaking Hands with the Holy Ghost, which is a personal favourite of mine. This was followed by Ain't Much Left of Me with incredible slide guitar before the bridge, which well and truly brought the show to a close. Charlie Starr has to be applauded for not just being a great frontman, but also the singer and lead guitarist in what is a 20-year-old band just maturing from album to album. The band played a brilliant feel-good set throughout the night, who were supported by the additional musicians on stage, notably Preston Holcomb on percussion and Benji Shanks on guitar. Blackberry Smoke is definitely a band that you need to put in your diary for when they are next in town.
Okay, so we're back in the studio at Gigs and Guitars, and what did I really think about the Blackberry Smoke gig? Well, I'll come on to that in a minute. There was a couple of little negatives, but it's nothing to do with the show or the performance by the band at all, and I'll just refer to my notes. So very quickly, electronic tickets, never really been happy with these. They've always been a little bit problematic. Now, we had our tickets checked 3 times when we went into the complex, which wasn't a problem, but I think it's in response to the Brixton issue a few months ago. Here's a scenario. We're in a queue, going up the stairs, trying to get into the actual Roundhouse part of the complex. We're already inside the actual premises. We did get in there. We couldn't find a cloakroom to get our coats tucked away, which is what we try and do. And we found out that the cloakroom was back downstairs, which meant we had to leave the auditorium. There was a lady next to us who did have a problem. She left the Roundhouse auditorium, so she's still in the complex, and when she came to come back in, they wouldn't let her in. And the reason for this is she could not produce a ticket. Now, she's had her tickets checked 3 times by that point. Now, her electronic tickets were on her husband's mobile phone. He was watching the gig with us. She couldn't access those tickets, bit of a debacle to say the least, which resulted in her having to hand her mobile phone in to security, then go and find her husband, take his mobile phone from him, take it back out to get the tickets checked again, and then she was given her phone back, and then she was eventually let back in again. I think, right, well, perhaps that was a little bit of an overkill. I'm not really sure. We've only heard one person's side of the story in relation to that, but I think it's a bit of a faff. Now, that could have happened to me if I'd taken my coat down to the cloakroom, because my tickets were on Michelle's mobile phone. I would have had the same problem. So it's only a minor part. Now, the other thing about electronic tickets, if, say, for example, like me, you like a souvenir, you like to pick up, say, for example, the programme. David Gilmour a few years ago was playing the Rattle That Lock tour at the Royal Albert Hall, got the programme, and my hard copy ticket as sent to us in the post is now attached to that as a brilliant souvenir. You can't do that with electronic tickets, guys. Tried to find the tickets last night for this edition of Gigs and Guitars through the app, through the website. They're not there anymore, so I couldn't even screenshot them just to show you. So I've no evidence of actually being there other than the film in this video. What I liked about the Blackberry Smoke tour is that they've posted their set list from each gig on Instagram, so you can check those now and so you can see the differences between each night's set list, and there were changes to the actual running order, which I thought was really good. But the positive for me was that on that running order, which is on my screen at the moment, I can see that Holy Ghost, which is the penultimate song before the final actual track of the night, which was Ain't Much Left, it tells you what guitars they were using. It tells you what tunings they were in. So you can actually see from that list exactly what guitars they were using on the night. So there's Gibson 335s, there was Gibson SGs, Telecasters, Les Pauls. You can see it on there and it's really, really good. But Holy Ghost as an example, you can see that there's 2 Telecasters being used in Open G tuning, but also a Gibson SG as well in Open G, as used by Benji Shanks, and Paul Jackson was using the other Telecaster. So in conclusion, Blackberry Smoke, would I recommend them? Yes, I would without a doubt. They are still touring. The last gig of this year is in Orlando on the 4th of November. I've just checked the website out and it's exactly what it says. They've got a full diary full of dates before them. So if you're watching this across the pond, ladies and gents, highly recommend you go and watch Blackberry Smoke. You will not be disappointed. Gigs and Guitars will give them 9 out of 10 for their show. Can't fault the band at all, or indeed the support band. They were very good. But they've just lost a full score of 10 out of 10 just due to tickets. And this channel is all about the experiencing not only the show, but indeed getting there, accessibility, and the overall experience of the day in terms of cost and hassle and all the rest of it. Public transport was great. The train networks were fantastic. That worked really, really well. And if you've enjoyed this edition of Gigs and Guitars, please consider subscribing. It really does support the channel, and there is always time in the day for a brew. Cracking.